He won the World Series of Poker. He co-founded a billion-dollar poker empire, and then he helped ruin it all. Chris Ferguson wasn't just another poker pro. He was the genius, a PhD in computer science and a game theory wizard. But behind the stoic face was something darker. He didn't just play the game, he helped rig it. When Full Tilt Poker collapsed, hundreds of millions vanished, and Ferguson, he went silent, then cashed out. This is the story of how one of the smartest minds in poker became one of its greatest villains, and why, for many players, his downfall wasn't just inevitable, it was satisfying. Chris Ferguson didn't come up through the underground poker scene. He came from academia, a house full of know-it-alls. His father was a professor at UCLA, specializing in probability and decision theory. Chris followed suit, earning a PhD in computer science. While most students were cramming for exams, Ferguson was calculating pot odds and grinding free rolls online. He was a machine. Sunglasses, long hair, blank stare. Opponents couldn't read him because there was nothing to read. His nickname? Jesus. Not for saving souls, but for sitting at the table like a prophet who already knew how the hand would end. And most of the time, he did. By the turn of the millennium, Ferguson was a math whiz playing cards. First, he won a 7-card stud bracelet. Then he entered the World Series main event. 512 players, one champion, Ferguson. He steamrolled the final table. Heads up against poker legend TJ Cloutier, Ferguson pulled off a clinical performance, earning $1.5 million and poker immortality. He wasn't loud, he wasn't charming, but he proved that precision could beat bravado. The poker boom was about to explode, and Ferguson was perfectly positioned. He was about to become the face of a brand new empire. After conquering the World Series of Poker, Chris Ferguson stepped into a new role, not just as a player, but as a founder. In the year 2004, Ferguson partnered with a group of poker professionals and software minds to launch Full Tilt Poker. The idea was simple: create a site where fans could play directly against their favorite pros. And the execution? Brilliant. Full Tilt didn't just grow, it exploded. It had something other sites didn't: personality. Poker stars like Phil Ivey, Tom Dwan, Mike Matusow, and Gus Hansen wore the Full Tilt patch on TV. They became part of the brand. And Chris, he was at the heart of it. He was coding in the background, helping shape the very structure of the site. This was a man with a PhD in computer science, building a poker empire from the inside out. Ferguson knew how to sell his image. He wasn't loud or wild. He was composed, smart, calculated. His legendary 0 to 10k bankroll challenge added to the mystique. Starting with free rolls, he climbed the ladder, using nothing but discipline and strategy. He never risked more than 5% of his bankroll in any game. When he hit his goal, he kept going, turning 10,000 into 20,000, all tracked publicly. The message was clear: Chris Ferguson was a great player. He was the smart player, the one who played the long game, and Full Tilt Poker became a reflection of that brand. Sleek, serious, elite. Television ads ran non-stop. High-stakes poker and Poker After Dark featured Full Tilt pros regularly. At its peak, Full Tilt rivaled poker stars for dominance. Players trusted it, fans worshipped it. Money poured in from all over the world, especially from the United States. But as Full Tilt grew, so did its appetite. When the United States passed the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act in 2006, most sites began pulling back. Full Tilt didn't. The site kept operating in the US, ignoring legal warnings and riding the wave of cash. And it wasn't just profit, it was lifestyle. Executives paid themselves bonuses, pros got 7-figure dividends. Ferguson, according to federal allegations, was one of the biggest recipients. By 2009, something fell off. Withdrawals slowed down, support tickets piled up. Players began asking questions. Behind closed doors, Full Tilt wasn't holding player funds in separate accounts. It was using deposits to cover operating costs, paying out millions while letting liabilities stack up in silence. And Chris Ferguson, still wearing the hat and giving interviews, still pushing the image of the math genius who played it straight. But the numbers were no longer on his side. The site was heading toward a collapse, and Ferguson was sitting near the top of the pyramid. April 15, 2011. In the poker world, it's remembered by one name: Black Friday. That morning, the United States Department of Justice unsealed indictments against the 3 largest online poker sites: PokerStars, Absolute Poker, and Full Tilt. Their domains were seized, logos were replaced with FBI warning screens. The poker boom, as people knew it, was over. For thousands of Full Tilt players, it wasn't just the loss of a website, It was the loss of their money. Accounts frozen, balances inaccessible. Many had 6 or even 7 figures tied up on the site, and now there were no answers. In the days that followed, the true damage started to surface. The DOJ described Full Tilt not as a poker platform, but as a global Ponzi scheme. Player deposits weren't protected. There was no financial firewall. Executives, including Ferguson, had allegedly paid themselves over $400 million using customer funds. Ray Bitar, Howard Lederer, Chris Ferguson. The names behind the company were now the faces of the scandal. The site had less than $7 million in the bank, but it owed players over $300 million, and yet the bonuses kept flowing. As the scandal unfolded, poker fans waited for answers. They got none. Ferguson disappeared. No public statement, no explanation, no apology. For 5 years, he said absolutely nothing. This was a betrayal. Chris Ferguson, the image of composure and integrity, had vanished at the moment people needed him most. Meanwhile, lawsuits were filed, investigations launched. The DOJ reached settlements with the remaining executives. Ferguson forfeited over $2 million and paid an undisclosed amount from accounts in his name. He admitted no wrongdoing, and still, silence. In 2016, Ferguson quietly returned to the World Series of Poker. No announcement, no press. He simply walked in, registered, and played. Players were stunned. Some refused to sit at his table. Others whispered as he walked by. Then came 2017. Ferguson dominated. He cashed 23 times, won his 6th World Series bracelet, his first in 14 years, and somehow won Player of the Year. The poker world boiled. It wasn't just that he won. It was that he did so without ever acknowledging what happened. No remorse, no humility. Just sunglasses, chips, and more cashes. Online forums exploded with backlash. How is he allowed to play? Where's the apology? Does he think we forgot? Finally, in 2018, 7 years after Black Friday, Ferguson released a video statement. It lasted under 1 minute. In a wooden rehearsed tone, he said he regretted not being able to prevent Black Friday. He claimed he worked relentlessly to help players get paid back, and he ended with a vague promise. One day, the full story of Full Tilt will be told. For many, it was too little, too late. For a player once seen as the face of precision and intellect, the apology felt robotic, almost like he was bluffing, again. Before the scandal, Chris Ferguson was considered one of the smartest players in poker. A world champion, a builder of empires, a man who proved that intelligence could beat instincts. After the scandal, none of that mattered. His name, once synonymous with game theory and precision, became shorthand for betrayal. In forums, on YouTube, and around card rooms, one question echoed: how could someone that smart allow this to happen? Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he knew everything, but he never really said. And that silence, more than anything, is what damaged him the most. Poker is a game of mistakes, but the best players own theirs. Ferguson didn't. He left a trail of broken trust, unanswered questions, and an industry still trying to recover. Today, Ferguson still plays tournaments. You'll see him in the World Series player list. He still cashes, still racks up results, but the applause is gone. The respect faded. In the poker world, legacy matters. It's what separates legends from cautionary tales. Chris Ferguson once stood for calculation, discipline, and excellence. Now he represents something else entirely. A reminder that when power, money, and silence combine, even the sharpest minds can become villains. The most painful part? He could have walked away as one of the greats. Instead, he'll be remembered as the man who helped break the trust of an entire community and said almost nothing while it burned. But some players don't go quiet. Some fight back, loudly,